Street jewelry shop. By the way, I thought that was an interesting happenstance that the ring came from Bond Street. Who helped originate this plan again? Yes, Mr. Fleming, the creator of James Bond. Also included in the pocket litter was a letter from Major Morgan's father and a message from Lloyd's Bank demanding a payment on an overdraft of £79, and some change as well as a receipt for a shirt from Jeeves. Montague had asked MI5 scientists to test which inks would last the longest in water also. Besides correspondence, they added items such as a book of stamps, cigarettes, matches, a pencil stub, keys, and ticket stubs from a London theater and a bill for 4 nights lodging at the Naval and Military Club to show where he was from the 18th to the 24th of April. They also included a St. Christopher medallion. Ironically, the St. Christopher medallion represents St. Christopher crossing a large river and can be represented as meaning safe travel overseas. Even in the midst of a serious operation such as this, they still found a way to be a bit tongue-in-cheek with it. Finally, they added his naval identity card and a photograph of an actual captain named Ronnie Reed. They had attempted to photo Glendower Michael, but those didn't work as it was obviously a picture of a cadaver. Montague and Chumley did a search for people that resembled Mr. Michael, also known as Major Martin, and finally found Captain Reed, also a member of MI5. He agreed, and they took 3 passes and cards and had them issued as recent replacements for lost originals. For the next few weeks, Montague rubbed the cards on his pants to give them a used look and remove the new shine from them. Meanwhile, Chumley wore the Royal Marine Major uniform, which was about his size, to give it a used look as well. The only question remained, and not one you'd ever expect a group of intel officers asking each other, yeah, but what about his underwear? In war-rationed Britain, underwear was in short supply, so a pair of good quality woolen underwear owned by the late warden of New College, Oxford, Herbert Fisher, was used. Thanks for the donation to the effort, Mr. Fisher. They finally realized the rest of their plans and prepared to put the operation into its final stages. Early in the morning on the 17th of April, 1943, Mr. Michael was dressed as Major William Martin, finally bringing the 2 men together officially. Mr. Michael's feet had frozen though, so an electric heater to defrost his feet just enough so they could slip on his boots. All of the pocket litter was placed on his body and his briefcase was attached. They placed Mr. Michael, now officially known as Major William Martin of the Royal Marines, into a large canister filled with 21 pounds of dry ice and closed it up. When the dry ice vaporized, it filled the canister with carbon dioxide, which pushed out any oxygen. This preserved the body without needing to be refrigerated. It was placed in a 1937 Fordson van and driven by former racing champ St. John Jock Horsell, who now worked as a driver for MI5. The 2 intel officers traveled with the canister through the night to West Scotland, where the canister was placed on the submarine HMS Seraph. The commander, Lieutenant Bill Jewell, who had previous experience with special operations, told his men the object was a secret weather device they were transporting. The Seraph, having survived 2 bombings en route, finally arrived and surfaced in Spain on 30 April at 4:15 a.m. Jewell had the canister brought on deck, sent everyone except his officers below deck, and opened the canister. The commander read Psalm 39 and ordered the engines full astern. Pushing the body out into the water, this would push the corpse toward the beach. They brought the canister back on board and after traveling 12 miles out, pushed it out to sea and riddled it with machine gun fire. This didn't work due to the air trapped inside, so they blew it up with plastic explosives. Jewell then messaged Admiralty with the message, "Mincemeat completed," and carried on to their original location of Gibraltar. The body of Major Martin was found in the morning by a local Spanish fisherman. It was taken to Huelva, where it was handed to a naval judge. Francis Hazelden, the local British vice consul, was officially informed by the Spanish of the incident. He then reported back to the Admiralty about the body and the briefcase. A series of pre-scripted diplomatic cables were sent between Hazelden and his superiors for many days. The British already knew that these were being intercepted by the Germans, who had broken the encrypted coding. The message said it was vital that Hazelden retrieve that briefcase due to its importance. This, of course, got the Germans' attention. Hazelden also assisted the effort by being present for Major Martin's autopsy, and in order to prevent the doctors there from discovering the body was a 3-month-old corpse, intervened and asked if they could bring the inspection to a close due to the stench of the body and go have lunch. They agreed and signed the death certificate for Major Martin as asphyxiation through immersion in the sea. The body was released, and as Major William Martin, the body was buried in the Nuestra Senora Cemetery with full military honors on May 2nd. Glendower Michael had pulled off an operation as a deep cover agent even in his death. As a side note, in 1977, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission took responsibility for Major Martin's grave in Huelva in 1977. In 1997, the commission added the postscript, Glendower Michael served as Major William Martin, RM, giving honor and recognition to the man behind the mask of Major Martin. Now, as far as the briefcase goes, the Germans were pressuring the Spanish to give them the contents of the case. The Spanish held out, though, and the briefcase was taken to naval headquarters at San Fernando near Cadiz to send on to Madrid. German sympathizers did photograph the contents, but still did not open the letters. Once it reached Madrid, however, Karl Erich Kuhlenthal, one of the senior agents of the Abwehr, a military intelligence agency for Germany, asked Admiral William Canaris, who was the Abwehr head, to persuade the Spanish to surrender the documents. The Spanish agreed and removed the letter with a technique that wouldn't break the wax seal on the envelope. They dried the letters and photographed them. Then they soaked them in salt water and reinserted the documents into the envelopes. What they didn't know was an eyelash had been placed within the envelope as a means to see if the letters had been removed at all. When they returned the letters through their stealthy methods, the eyelash was no longer in the envelope. The Germans received the information on May 8. The briefcase was then returned to Haselden by the Spanish authorities, who forwarded it back to London. The envelopes and documents were tested and found to have been removed, along with the fact the eyelash was no longer in there. They fell for the trap just as the British officers and their team had planned. There was many instances in the entire story where the operation could have completely failed for the simplest of reasons, but everything played out just as needed. Talk about a nail-biter. In order to finalize everything they had done, they sent another easily breakable cable to Haselden to state that everything appeared to be in place and nothing had been opened. Haselden then leaked that news to Nazi-sympathetic Spaniards. On the 14th of May, a message sent by the Germans that was decrypted warned that the invasion was to be in the Balkans with a feint to the Dodecanese, not Sicily as everyone suspected. The final message concerning this was sent by Brigadier Leslie Hollis to Winston Churchill, who was visiting the United States at the time. It read, "Mincemeat swallowed, rod, line, and sinker, by the right people and the best information they look like acting on it." Hitler himself told Mussolini that Greece, Sardinia, and Corsica must be defended at all costs, and his German troops were the best to do the job. The Germans moved their forces out of Italy to go reinforce those areas, leaving Sicily with extremely minimal defenses by local forces. This shortened the campaign in the area of Sicily by up to 2 months, saved tens of thousands of lives, and most assuredly was a major embarrassment to Hitler himself. Operation Mincemeat was a success. Montague, in order to wrap up everything completely, had Major William Martin's name listed as a casualty in the published list of British lost in war. It appeared in the Times on the 4th of June. Coincidentally, it was listed that 2 other officers had died when their plane was lost at sea, and there was a report of film star Leslie Howard being shot down and killed by the Luftwaffe as well, which gave credence to Major Martin's story. This operation was just crazy enough to work, as they say, and it took a lot of moving pieces, people being in the right places, and buckets full of luck to make it happen, but it worked. Military historian Michael Howard described Mincemeat as the best known and perhaps the most successful single deception operation of the entire war. As time has gone on, it is still celebrated as the most spectacular episode in the history of deception ever. It also gives us a moment to remember that while Glendower Michael never had an easy life when he was alive, thanks to him and the wild plan of a team of espionage specialists, military members, and other key players, many more got to live full and happy lives after a brutal war. That's all for this episode, but stay tuned for part 2 in our next episode where we continue our talk about deceptive actions in World War II, as well as a journey into the creepy and gruesome methods used to manipulate the enemy on the battlefield. Thanks for tuning in to Trivial, and we look forward to seeing you for the second half of Battlefield Bluffs.